Good morning, class. It is Tuesday, March 24th. This is our Bible class. Today our topic is the deaths of Saul and Jonathan. We have established the relationship already amongst Saul and David. David has become very popular among the people, and Saul has become very jealous of him. There have been several occasions when he has tried to kill David, and so we're moving towards the end of our discussion about David, but we're not quite there yet. What I want to remind you of, or I actually want to read to you, is the account of the death of Jonathan and Saul. And then I want to read to you the reaction of David, which is a little surprising considering the fact that Saul was trying to kill David. David was very mournful and sorrowful of the deaths of Saul. And on several occasions, David had the opportunity to kill Saul, and he chose not to, saying, "This is the Lord's anointed one." And so I'll begin with 1 Samuel, and I'm going to start in chapter 31 about the deaths of Saul and Jonathan. So now the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many of them fell slain. The Philistines pressed hard after Saul and his sons, and they killed his son Jonathan and 2 others. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him critically. Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and run me through and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and he fell on it. When the armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor-bearer and all his men died together that same day. The next day when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen. They cut off their heads, stripped off their armor, and they sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the good news. In the temple of their idols and among their people, they put the armor in the temple and fastened their bodies to the city wall. Now, when the people of Jabesh-Gilead heard that the Philistines and what they had done to Saul and his sons, all of their valiant men journeyed through the night. They took down their bodies of Saul and his sons from the wall, and then they fasted for 7 days. Okay, so these men who went and saved the bodies of Saul and his sons, they weren't actually Israelites. They were people that Saul had actually protected at one time, and so they were paying homage to this man. And so we have the deaths of Jonathan and Saul. And now what I want to do is read to you David's reaction. This is in the next book, second book of Samuel, chapter 1. After the death of Saul, David returned from defeating the Alchemites. On the 3rd day, a man arrived from Saul's camp with his clothes torn, with dust on his head. When he came to David, he fell to the ground to pay him homage. "Where did you come from?" David asked him. He answered, "I have escaped from the Israelite camp." What has happened?" David asked. "Tell me." And he said, "The man fled from battle. Many of them fell and died, and Saul and his son Jonathan are dead." When David said to the young man who brought him this report, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" "I happened to be on the Mount Gilboa," the young man said, "and there was Saul leaning on his sword. And the chariots and riders were almost upon him. When he turned around, he saw me, and he called out to me, and I said, 'What can I do?' And he asked me, 'Who are you?' 'I am an Alchemite,' I answered. Then he said to me, 'Stand over me and kill me. I am in the throes of death, but I am still alive.' So I stood over him and killed him, because I knew that after he had fallen, he would not survive. And I took the crown that was on his head and the band on his arm and gave them here and brought them here to my Lord." Then David and all the men with him took hold of their clothes and they tore them. They mourned and wept and fasted till evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, and for many of the house of the Lord of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. David said to the young man who brought him the report, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I am a son of an alien, an Alchemite," he answered. David asked him, "Why were you not afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Then David called to one of his men and said, "Go, strike him down." So he struck him down and he died. For David had said to him, Your blood be on your own head. Your own mouth testified against you when you said, I killed the Lord's anointed. So David had great respect for Saul, even though we know that Saul had on several occasions tried to kill David. David was very loyal to Saul. So the Lord was the one who chose Saul to be king, and David refused to go against God's will. On one occasion when David had the opportunity to kill Saul, he refrained to, saying, as surely as the Lord lives, the Lord himself will strike him. Or his time will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and he will perish. But the Lord forbid that I should lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. You see, David believed in the timing and the planning of God, and he refused to put Saul to death himself. So David had great faith in God, and we can see that. As long as God wanted Saul to be king, David would wait. He would not take matters into his own hand. Now, there was one occasion when David and his men were hiding in a cave, and Saul entered into this cave to relieve himself. David was so near to Saul that he was able to cut the edge of his robe, yet he refused to kill him. Instead, he said, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing. And he constantly refers to Saul as the Lord's anointed. And so we see David having very high regard for King Saul, even though Saul had sought David's life on several occasions. Okay, so on your paperwork today, you should have picked up your packets. And in your packets, you have this card, which yours is color-coded. And I want you to read over that, the death of Saul and Jonathan. Now, I have read that to you, 1 Samuel 31, and I've actually read a little bit more. And so you won't need to read that again. You can if you want to. But the answers that you'll find for your worksheet are going to be on your color-coded card. Okay, so this is going to be just like any other day. Fill out your paperwork. Make sure that you write in complete sentences. Start with a capital letter, end with a period. Take the question and reword it with your answer. That's a simple way to make a good complete sentence. For example, question number 5 is, what did Saul ask of his armor bearer? You would simply say, Saul asked his armor bearer to, and then finish your sentence. Okay, so make sure you write neatly and it's legible. So one thing that I want to remind you to do, or suggest that you do, is that on the days that you're doing Tuesday work, complete it on Tuesday. You don't want to have too much free time where you put things aside and do it later, because that's going to cause a lot of stress at a later date. So make sure that you keep a regular schedule. It's just a better way to approach life, actually. I've had to tell my own son this. He's going through the same thing that you are. So make sure you do your homework on the day that you would be doing it if you were already in school. Make sure you go out and exercise. Use your imagination and play outside. You want to manage your time well. You want to watch the time that you actually spend in front of a computer or a television. That can cause you to become lethargic, and you won't want to play, or you won't want to do your homework. And so, of course, you're going to do those things. Just log it so that you're not doing too much of that and not enough of the things that you should be doing. So do your best during this time that we're apart and we're not in class to follow the same type of schedule that you would if you were in class. And it's a good time to be responsible for make yourself a checklist, check things off. It'd be kind of fun. So anyway, thank you guys. I hope you are all doing well, and I will see you again on Thursday. Have a good evening.